Gang, 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 bam, 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 bam. The chase is back, guys. I just watched the announcement and there was a lot to take from that. I did take my little notes. Hi guys, welcome to Cruising with Cruz, the one-shot edition. Motorsports talk here. NASCAR and made a great announcement that is really going to capture, I feel like, a lot of fans that are in my generational of growing up with the sport. But before we continue on, please like, subscribe, hit that ring notification, and stay tuned because this weekend we are running the 24 hours to Daytona. I did get my two other drivers, so we're officially in it for this weekend. But more on that later on. We're gonna be talking about the big news with NASCAR. The chase for the NASCAR Cups. I was about to say Sprint Cup is back. Yeah, it's a little nostalgic there. But yeah, it was crazy because when they were announcing it, they were showing the old chase videos of when Kurt Busch won his championship, Tony won his championship, then uh Jimmy on that 6 title streak, and then with Tony winning his title again against Edwards, Keselowski. It's something that we grew up on. And it's funny because when they were talking about it, they had Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Briscoe back there, and they nailed the head with that in terms of like, yeah, we did grow up with it. I remember when the chase format was first announced back in 2004, because this is still a time when my dad was still the old school NASCAR fan, where he was a Rusty Wallace fan, and this is when they were running the old point system back then. So um in a way, it did kind of rub my dad off the wrong way, but he did enjoy it from what he told me, especially when Rusty would qualify in for the chase, his final season. And yeah, it's Mark Martin said it best. It's not gonna please everyone. Not everyone's gonna be happy about it, and I think for the most part, NASCAR definitely took a win with this because the old playoff system, like, don't get me wrong, I think the 2014 season was perfect for what it was with that playoff system because there were so many unknowns. But the second to last race at Phoenix, when Ryan Newman coincidentally took out Kyle Larson just so he can get in, that's what kind of started that trend with the playoff format moving forward. 2015. I don't need to talk about that fall Talladega race because we all know what happened then. But I'm just happy we are not going to have those discussions anymore. And the one thing I like that they were emphasizing on is, it's simple. 26 straight races, consistency. If you make it in the top 16, you're in the chase. And I liked how they devised the 16 drivers. It's literally a 100-point deficit from first to 16th, and then on top of that, I think it was like every 15 points on up. I don't know how that worked out. Anywho, um I just liked how they were just like, consistency means a lot, and I liked how they got rid of the whole winning your in deal because I wasn't winning any fans at all whatsoever. Especially for me, I think the one driver out of everyone, every driver in the Cup roster right now that enjoyed this announcement is Kyle Busch. Because if there's one man I know who's going to be very consistent and might bring RCR a championship again, it is him. Um, Aside from that, Chase Elliott said something too, and it alluded to, like I said, what I was just saying earlier right now in the video, and how a lot of us old school fans, we grew up around the chase format. Because for me personally, I remember when I was playing like the EA games and stuff like that, and they had the mode of just running just the straight 10 chase races. I used to do that a lot, and I would just like customize the roster just because of like a what if scenario. And I like that because again, you have to be not only have to be consistent the first 26 races, is like, all right, you get a soft reset, but you got to be consistent the next 10 races. So I do like that. I like that element of them having to keep it 10 straight races. Now they don't have like the rounds of 8 or whatever. It's just a straight 10 chase format. And I think what they're going to probably, and I hope they do this with, like they did back in the day, they really hype up those 10 races. Make like I remember when they would go to like tracks that had like the grass in the front stretch, and they would put like those sections on the like the front the beginning of pit road and the end of pit road, where they made it like look like all chase influenced. in terms of graphics on what they added on the grass, I hope they go back to stuff like that, because again, alluding to what Chase said, a lot like fans like me, I watch the sport on and off. I'm not as consistent as I used to because my favorite driver officially retired. But I love that Junior was on that panel too because again, Steve O'Donnell said it best. Everyone on that panel right there, they have a passion and love for the sport, and the fact that Mark Martin had to get out of his way from vacation just so he can help announce this, it shows a lot of the dedication he had towards this too. Because again, Mark Martin is an old timer like my dad. I don't know if my dad would be ever interested in watching the sport again. Because again, this is where the sport's gonna kind of have a little bit of a hard time. Is now really trying to reattract those fans back again. But they also said it best too with like the driver engagement and just building that element of like them being heroes and stuff like that, and that's one thing I do miss, because when you look at like don't get me wrong, my new top three drivers are Chase Elliott, Bowman, and Larson. But even before then, it's like I was telling myself like when these guys retire, like my top, because my top three drivers before were Truex, Edwards, and Junior. And once they all got out of it, it was like, damn, it was kind of hard for me to stay engaged, especially once they implemented that chase format into the lower tier series, and that just can't create chaos. And I think right now, and I like that NASCAR did acknowledge the fact that, yeah, we're in a little bit of a pickle here, but that doesn't mean we can save ourselves. And I do hope and pray that this does work out for NASCAR in the long run because, you know, it's it's gonna be a long time for it to happen. But Chase Elliott's done something, um, and he said to be grateful about it, and it's true, because we can't always get what we want, and I think and the way they were emphasizing that too is because we're in a time where people are just so sensitive and just picky as fuck. Excuse my language, but it's true, we're in a time where just people just want specific things to their liking. It's like, life is not fair, unfortunately. It's not gonna be what you always want, but you can compromise with whatever it is you get, And I'm just happy that we got the chase back, Honestly, I like that. And Junior alluded to it too, like during the summer series, like the build up going into the chase, during his portion of the broadcast. It's gonna be interesting because yeah, but at that point, you're gonna see who's gonna be in, who's on that bubble, and that's again, where the hard racing's gonna kick in. I think the less of like dumping a guy and all that stuff, it's not gonna be as presented as it was before in years past. Because let me tell you, that was like I said, when Ryan Newman did that to Kyle Larson, that kind of created an effect in the long run, and so it's gonna be interesting to see how this does play out because, mind you, Joey Logano has 3 championships under the old format. So it's gonna be interesting to see during his time that he has left in the sport if he can actually win one legitimately. Because I unfortunately don't consider Logano. I hate to say it, this playoff format really illegitimizes a lot of things, because now you're gonna look back, you're like, fuck, well, that wasn't really legit, And that's going to be hard to, again, that's going to be the little stuff that NASCAR's going to have to get over. And that's going to happen over time. And NASCAR needs to maintain the minimal changes as possible, especially when it comes to um, influencing the chase format. Which leads me to the next thing, because I did raise a couple questions with that, because so the winner, instead of getting 40 points, they get 55 points. It's no more winning you're in, which is cool. But this does raise other concerns, because I don't know why they're asking most of the people on the panel were asking dumb questions like, oh, what did you format? They literally said that in the beginning, like it took time and effort to really get where we're at, like ask like some serious questions like, so aside from those 15 extra bonus points that the driver is essentially getting for winning, what other bonus points can drivers get? Are we going to bring back, if you lead a lap, you get 5 bonus points? Most laps led, you get 5 bonus points? I like the fastest lap thing, and they should get bonus points too. And another thing I was saying earlier, since they're trying to bring back the hype with Daytona and whatnot, especially with the qualifying. I think it'd be cool if, if the pole sitter for these special events get an additional bonus points too, because that'll bring back more effort into qualifying too, to like, hey, there's some points up for grabs in qualifying. And I think that would definitely engage the fans even more. Because again, it's they did a good job, all right? This is exactly what we wanted, all right? I am not complaining. I'm happy with that. But what other things are going to be implemented, in this chase format? Not just like, all right, we got 16 drivers, bada bing, bada boom, like what else are we going to do moving forward, And I think that's what raised a lot of questions too, especially with the lower series too. Are they reverting back to the chase format? Are they still sticking with the playoff format, or are they going to go straight how many of the races that they run in the trucks and Xfinity, just have them fight for the points like that? So again, I'm happy. I'm not complaining. We got what we got. But again, we got other questions, and I think the questions I'm asking are very more realistic to ask versus like the dumb questions and like, oh, what get to the take format, dude? Come on, man. Ask like a serious question. Like, I swear, these reporters, I feel like I do a better job in terms of journalism, and I never took any kind of journalism class. But anywho, I am so happy. NASCAR, again, you guys got a win for me in my book. You're definitely gonna bring me back in terms of watching engagement, especially this year too, because you guys are coming to my hood. You guys are coming to San Diego, so I'm definitely gonna attend that race. I do have plans to have a lot of coverage for that. I'm really excited for that. But yeah, NASCAR, you guys won with that one. I'm excited. The chase for the Sprint Cup is back, and I'm excited. Again, guys, thank you for tuning in to the One Shot Motorsports Talk. I am Cruising with Cruz. Please like, subscribe, hit that ring notification for future videos. Yeah, because this week is gonna be productive for me. Because we're preparing for the 24 Daytona this weekend, and I got my two drivers. Things are looking good for this weekend. So stay tuned for more content, and I'll catch y'all on the flippity flip later.